In this video, we're gonna be going over how to create your first macro inside of Keyboard Maestro. Before we dive in, I just wanna quickly talk about how I have my caps lock key set up on my keyboard. You do not need to do what I'm about to explain to you, but it will be important for understanding how some of my keyboard shortcuts are set up. So what I did is I remapped my caps lock key so that it's the equivalent of holding all the modifier keys. Modifier keys are Command, Shift, Option, and Control. So if we go over to Premiere Pro really quick, you can see Command, Option, Control, and Shift. If I hold down caps lock, it's gonna hold down all of these. So you can see it's holding down all of those. And the reason I do this is because you can see that Premiere Pro doesn't use any shortcuts with this key. In fact, all applications do not use this key combination, which is great because now I know if I hold down this key and hit anything else, no program uses this as a shortcut. Many programs use Command S as save, Command A as select, and so on. So having this allows me to have many more shortcuts. They call this a hyperkey, and if you wanna know more, I will leave a link down below so you can go ahead and check it out. But just know that this is absolutely not necessary to follow along with this tutorial. I just wanted to let you know that it was called a hyperkey because many of my macros use the hyperkey to set up the macro. The first thing you need to do is download a program called Carabiner Elements. Once you've downloaded this, you're gonna be greeted with this user interface when the program opens. You wanna go ahead and go over to the Complex Modifications tab, and you guys probably aren't going to have this because this is the custom rule that I already have set up. To get yours, you're gonna go ahead and go down to Add Rule, and then go up to Import More Rules from the Internet. You aren't going to have any of these here because these are ones I've already imported. It's gonna go ahead and open a web browser, then click Modifier Keys, and then you want this one right here. And you're gonna go ahead and click Import, and then Open Link. Once you've done this, you'll see it pop this little box up. Go ahead and click Import, and then it'll tell you if it was successful or not. And now it's gonna open up the rules thing. To get back to this, you just go to Add Rules. You're gonna see we have quite a few different options here. The first one is change caps lock key to Command, Control, Option, Shift if pressed with other keys. This is exactly what a hyperkey is and what I was describing before. Right below that, you have change caps lock key to Command, Control, Option, Shift, but if you press it alone, it will act as the escape key. This can be really useful if you're on one of those newer MacBook Pros with the touch bar because the escape key is in a terrible place since it isn't a physical key anymore, so remapping the caps lock key to be a hyperkey and the escape key is very beneficial. Then the next important one is this one right here, which does what a hyperkey does, but if you hit Shift and caps lock, it will activate the caps lock key again. So if you are someone who still wants to be able to use the caps lock key, you can still activate it by hitting Shift caps lock. Unfortunately, you can't activate all three of these at the same time, but I'll show you how you can get around that a little bit later. So let's go ahead and click Enable on this first one right here. Now that we're in Premiere, I'm gonna show you what happens when I hold down the caps lock key. You can see it's now holding down Command, Option, Control, and Shift, which is exactly what we want it to do. And you can see that Premiere is not using any shortcuts that involve these modifier keys. In fact, there are no programs that I'm aware of that use this many modifier keys because it would be ridiculous to try and hold all of these and hit another key. This now means you have so many more options for macros or even just shortcuts inside of Premiere Pro. Now that you know how to set up a basic hyperkey, I'm gonna show you how to use my custom rule. One thing that's kind of a bummer with the rules that you have here is you have to choose one. You can't use all three. So if you wanted to be able to use a hyperkey, also have it act as escape, and still be able to activate the caps lock, you actually can't use all three of these at once because it kind of just messes them up. So I wrote my own custom JSON file so that I can still use all of them. If you don't care about having all three of those options and you just want one of them, you can go ahead and just use their rules. But for me, I wanted to be able to have all three. So now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to import my custom JSON file. The first thing you're gonna do is go ahead and close Carabiner Elements. And once you're on your desktop or in a Finder window, go ahead and hit Command-Shift-G. This is going to pull up this little dialog box and you wanna type this in right here. Go ahead and click Go, and this is gonna take you to where the Carabiner JSON file is located. Go ahead and delete the one that is currently located in here and replace it with the one that I'm going to give you. Now if we go ahead and open Carabiner Elements back up, you'll see that it has my custom rules right here. Now you have all three of the options available to you. Hyperkey, reactivate your caps lock key, or have it act as escape. But again, if you guys are only interested in having one of those options, you can go ahead and just use the rules that you imported from online. I just wanted to have all three because I think they're all really useful to have. So just to recap really quickly, having a hyperkey is really useful because now it gives you many more keyboard shortcuts that are not being used at all by the computer that you can use for Keyboard Maestro or even just Premiere. It's also helpful if you have it activate as an escape key because if you have one of those newer MacBook Pros with the touch bar, the escape key is really in a bad position, especially since it isn't a physical key, and now you can just use your pinky to hit escape. So that's all there is to it. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to let me know.